So hi everyone, this is Conversations with Trish, and I have the most amazing person and business owner on this call right now, and it's brilliant. And the reason why it's brilliant is Amy Taylor inspired my very first video journey, the 90-day video journey, because I think you were doing a 90-day video journey when I started to be exposed to the idea of starting an online business. And it was your authenticity in those videos that you were sharing as you were building your online business that totally inspired me. And I'm sure you've been told that before. So I'm pretty excited. And I must say a little bit nervous about interviewing you because like in Perth, because we met in Perth, Momentum Day, and it was like, oh, I was a little starstruck. Like I saw you there because I've been following your journey for so long. And it was like, oh my goodness, do I go up and say hello? Do I introduce myself? Do I let her know? And so it was breaking through that barrier and coming up to you and introducing myself and saying, Amy, you inspired my journey. And you remember that. I know you do.
Yeah, I do.
And I think that's a really important thing to do, is just acknowledge those people on that journey that inspire you to do things that you wouldn't normally do. And so that was the 90-day video journey. You were inspired that. And then also coming up to you and actually sharing that news with you, Momentum Day. So I'm not going to ramble too much longer, but I just want to ask you, your story is amazing and it's so interesting. Just a little bit about your background, your story, and what inspired you to really get into starting and building and developing a successful online business.
Yeah. So it was like a bit of a notion that I'd had for quite a long time. I spent like my 20s doing a bit of traveling and then doing a couple of years in a job and then getting the itch and going traveling again, like a lot of people do these days, I guess. I grew up always wanting to be in film and TV production. And I did go into that industry when I left uni, but very quickly realized that it was all work and no play. And you really need to be obsessed about it to be in that industry. And it's very exciting if you are. But I came out of that and I was kind of at this crossroads of, do I go and get like a full-time 9-to-5 type job? And I did. I ended up still in the entertainment industry working as a PA. And then for the next sort of 10-ish years, I was a PA. I worked in travel. I worked as a travel agent. And in between, I ended up getting a job with a travel agency who had offices all over the world. So it was great because I could go off for a year and come back and there'd always be a job for me. And in one of those gaps, I worked on cruise ships. And so at that point, I thought, nailed it. Traveling, working, getting paid to travel. And I was away working on the ships and on private yachts as well. And my uncle got diagnosed with cancer and he lived in Spain. So I literally dropped everything, went home, and we lost him in 4 weeks. It was really quick. And that was like my wake up call, because I got home and was struggling to readjust to being back in London and like had this amazing lifestyle, and I was quickly running out of money. So I went back into the travel job and was back in a cubicle, back in an office, and just was like, I could not readjust again. And I was like, I can't wait to get out of this. But the whole time I'd been on cruise ships specifically, every time we went into port, it wasn't really like you were traveling, because the first thing everybody did was grab their laptops and find the nearest Starbucks to get the Wi-Fi, because it was astronomically expensive on the ship. So I remember having these thoughts when I first was on the ships. I was like, what are all these people doing? Like, not the crew, but we'd go into cafes. And then I just became aware that more and more people these days seem to be in cafes working on the laptops. And I just kept thinking, I don't know what they're doing, but I want to do something like that. Because even working on the ship, so like you had a long contract and there was no flexibility really. You're still trading your time for money. And so it was close. Like I found a couple of things that came close to having that travel freedom lifestyle, but not really free. So anyway, after my uncle passed away and I was back in the UK and I was back in the 9-to-5, which is 7 till 7 or 8 till 8. I started looking, and I stumbled across affiliate marketing as a starting point, but along the way, sort of looked at lots of different things, e-commerce, all sorts of stuff, drop shipping. There's so many things you can do. And I think that's half the problem for people, is they get overwhelmed. But got started, and it's kind of, the rest is history. That's where I came from. I don't know how much more into it you want me to go, but
you can keep going. It's very interesting, because when you talk about the travel and the sort of, it gave you a sense of freedom with that travel, but by doing and the lifestyle, you talk about the lifestyle as well. There's, in a way, I think that there is some conditioning, some mental conditioning that has actually happened as well, as a process of you having that sense of freedom with that lifestyle. Even though you had to turn up and you had to be in a certain place,
it was just different.
Yes.
And I think if we fast forward to where I'm at now, like, I guess it's age and experience as well. Like, the novelty of travel has definitely worn off. I will never be sick of traveling. I still want to do lots of travel, but you just get a bit older, I guess, and having a home base becomes more appealing. And I think something people do need to be really aware of, and I'm always saying this to people that I coach, is like, why do you really want an online business, and why do you really want to travel? Because if I look back at even just getting my jobs on the ships, there was an element of ego, of I'm doing something different. And it was primarily selfish and for me, but it did feel good when people said, oh, your life looks amazing. And, oh, the worst one is, you're so lucky. I don't tolerate that, because I did make it happen. but people, it does give you a bit of a, you're doing something different. And I think people do need to be aware of what they really are doing it for. But that's just everybody's individual journey. And I know that my reasons for having this now are very different to what they were when I got started.
It's interesting because when we talk about conditioning and mental conditioning, because a lot of this journey is, and I'm discovering that more and more, it is so much, personal development and mindset. I'd say 90% of this journey is that. And it's interesting because there are things that do happen as we grow up that does cause that conditioning and does cause you to develop a certain mindset. And I always say, those children that grow up in a household where the parents are business owners, there is a mindset being developed at a very, very early age. A mindset of seeing what running a business is all alike, actually experiencing the ebbs and flows of cash flow coming in and out of a household. Even though they're very, very young, they are being conditioned at a very young age. And I think that the lifestyles that we lead, even up to the point where you make that decision of starting an online business, there is certain conditioning going on. And some people are falling into the process of building an online business a little easier than others. Would you agree with that? Like, some people are really sort of embracing the uncertainty. Some people really embrace the change a little easier than some people that maybe have not been through life as a business owner or children of business owners. Do you know? So I think that, because personal development and conditioning and mental conditioning and what we've seen around us has a big impact.
I'm still conditioning myself. Like, my ability to manage my time is shocking still. And that, I mean, elements of that are because it sounds too good to be true, but you don't have to do as much work. It's that simple. And that can start unhealthy patterns if you're someone like me who hasn't had their own business before. I did come from a 9-to-5 or a job where I knew what I had to do to get paid and not get fired, and that pretty much was my attitude, which is I hate even think about it now, but you do. And that's one of my biggest fears now, or not fears but challenges as a business owner, when I imagine where would my business go, or what businesses would I start in the future. I have a real trust issue hiring people, because it's like, I know what I was like as an employee. I did the minimum I could to get away with it and still get paid. So to then, like, yes, I took the leap of faith and went all in. I've never really, we were just talking about this before, like, I've never really had my back against the wall. So I'm still figuring out, what do I sit down and make sure I do religiously, habitually every day? And any other business owner hearing me say that might think, what? That's really odd. But yeah, it's not, I have not got that discipline nailed yet, because you don't have to do as much work in this business as you do in a job. It's that simple. So it's incredible. But the business and the money aside, in terms of fulfillment, it is a journey to figure out what you want and develop conditioning that works for you, irrespective of what you're doing with a business, like that's going to make you happy.
That's true. Yeah. And your journey has been varied. So totally. You've had a lot of changes throughout that journey as well. So you were in full-time employment. You decided to make that decision to be out of employment, and then you've considered to go back into employment for many different reasons. Yep. And this is about being real and authentic about that conversation. You know, some people will take that risk and be all in, and that's not for everyone. That's not for everyone. And sometimes not even sustainable to actually be all in, not sustainable. No. So let's have a conversation around that, because a lot of people, that's one of the biggest questions that I hear is, well, what do you think? Should I leave the job? Should I give myself a timeline to leave that job? Should I go and get that loan before I leave that job and then leave the job? Yeah, there's a lot around that, and I don't like to advise on that. However, I think sharing your journey can actually help people. Yeah. And what is it that you did? So what did your journey look like? It's 2.5 years. You've been 3 years. 3 years in 4.
Yeah, coming up. Well, just over 4 from day one. From finding, the education, the community, the people, the business model. After looking at various others, it's just over 4 years. I was 18 months in when I decided to quit the job, but I did the sensible thing and backed myself. I put 6 months or maybe more income in the bank to make sure I was covered, and because I didn't want to be in that position of, I've got to make this work or I can't pay my rent. I just didn't want to do that. That doesn't work for me. And so, I took the leap of faith, and it worked out really well. And I spent 5 months in Thailand, which was awesome. I'd never been there before, but actually it was quite a miserable experience because I was on my own and it was quite isolating, and a lot of growth took place. So then the travel thing I started to question how fulfilling that was. I've got amazing friends all over the world, and that is now by far the number one reason to travel for me. I've lived in lots of different places, so I have got incredible friendships, and it's the biggest thing in my life. So from that perspective, the travel's amazing, but traveling for the sake of traveling and being on different beaches, it gets old. And it did. So then I started, I was at this point where I was like, it's great, but conditioning again, we're so conditioned to think you have to work hard to be successful, that when you've done your work for the day and there's not really much else you need to do, and you've done it in 3 or 4 hours.
True.
I was just sitting at my laptop, I could have been it's conditioning and mindset and discipline to walk away from work.
True.
And have 4 hours a day to go and, now I should be down the beach reading or flying my drone or doing other things, but I still struggle to walk away from the laptop sometimes, because it's like I've made this much this month and I've done nothing. So it's interesting because I've kind of gone full circle with that, because I was at that point after I went to Thailand, decided to move to Australia, and that's when this whole new chapter of the business and the journey came in for me, because I got to Australia ready to really knuckle down and focus and take the business to the next level. And 10 days after I got here, my stepfather in the UK passed away. And to cut a long story short, I went home for 6 weeks. So having the freedom, the flexibility to literally turn around, get back on a plane with my laptop was great. Didn't really do anything though, work-wise. I was home for 6 weeks, came back to Australia, got myself settled, found somewhere to live. And then in September, my grandmother passed away. So I had to go back again. And so 2017 was a write-off. I was not in a good place. There were two closest, other than my mum, the 2 closest members of my family. And so it was not a good time. And I was not in a good space emotionally, but my business had never done better. And it was almost completely hands off.
Wow.
And it was, you know, call it serendipity or good fortune or whatever, but it just, it did really, really well. And I think sharing that has been really powerful for other people, because at a time I needed it most. I mean, I don't want to think about what it would have been like to have a full-time job, location dependent, salary dependent, when that was going on, and be stuck. I'd have had to quit and just gone, screw you, I'm going anyway, and then be financially buggered. So it was a total gift. And so that has really shifted my reasons for, or it's really made me look at what I want my day-to-day life to look like, because there is quite a degree of stress of having your own business and responsibility. I wouldn't want to give up the choice and the freedom that it gives me, but at the same time, there's a few downsides, and being part of a team and working with other people is still highly desirable for me. So yeah, I'm at another crossroads now where it's like, I know that this business has massive income potential, is massively flexible, but I've learned a lot about myself that I do and don't like. So the biggest overriding thing with all of it is its choice. So, and you only discover all of that and look at all of that by experiencing it. So yeah, I wouldn't want to advise people what to do and whether or not they go all in, because if nothing else, say you're in a job that you love, but you still don't have the money to do the things you want to do, well, fine, keep the job that you love, but do this on the side, because it's totally manageable to do it on the side, and add a 6-figure income stream on the side. Like it's for me at the moment, I'm single, and living costs in most Western countries are high. I see it now as the opportunity to have 2 incomes. I'm like, I have a job and I have a business, or I could do. So there's so many different scenarios and reasons to do it. I can't think of a reason not to, but there's so many different reasons and scenarios as to why you would. And it's different for everybody.
Yeah, I agree. And as you're talking to, what comes to mind for me is that it is a long-term prospect. And I know that because my primary business is a real estate investment business. And I always used to advise people that you're in this for the long term. So you're making decisions today based on things that are going to happen on the next 10 years for you on this portfolio, because it's a long-term journey, long-term prospect. And it's the same with this journey, because a lot of people do come in with the expectation of earning money in the first 12 months. Yes, that can happen. Yes, there is a possibility, but there is also a very large possibility that it won't happen. And so what you're sharing with me is the 4 years that you've been doing this journey, it's sort of had its ebbs and flows.
Hugely.
Right? Yeah. But during that time, you're really discovering exactly what it is that you want out of this journey, getting really, really specific about what you want. I've just come back from a trip where I've been able to go down to Tasmania and be with my mum through a whole treatment process. She got diagnosed February, just before I went to London. And that was life-changing for the whole family. And so you're right, that the fact that there's no specific geographic location that you have to be there, to be able to just pack up and do that is incredible. You don't have to be traveling the world, because I'm like you, it starts to get a little bit like, oh, travel again. Like it's an
upheaval.
Yes. And now I'm starting to think I've got to fly out on Friday to America for 2 months, and the shine can go from that. The shine can go. And so I think that it takes time to work out what is it that you truly want out of this journey. I
mean, there's definitely no negative, because for me, what I've learned even about travel now is, and even when I was an employee, it was rare that I would go on holiday and not think about work, because I mean, I was in sales to a degree. Travel agency is a sales job, and as much as you can put your out of office on and you deal with 900 emails when you get back, I never really switched off when I went on holiday. So it's no different now, because it's now my own business. It's a different reason not to switch off when you're on holiday. And yeah, you can travel. But one thing I learned from the travel I have done since doing this full time is that I either want to travel or I want to work. Sitting in a coffee shop in a hot location because you can isn't actually that much fun when you're in an amazing place. Like, I would rather go on a trip for 3 or 4 weeks with no laptop and be fully present, and have the laptop in my bag if there's a crisis, but be fully present and go to the jungle in the Amazon or go to Peru and do the Inca Trail, which is still on my list, and completely switch off. Because at least in that situation with what we do, it's still your work being looked after by your systems. Whereas when I used to go away from my travel job, you had to leave it in the hands of other people who would deprioritize your clients because they're busy with their own clients, and would they close this and close that. So if every month that I ever took a holiday, my next month's commission pay was always down because they hadn't closed things in time for me. And we're all the same. Like, we were all in the same boat. There's only so many hours in the day. But that's one thing I've learned now, is that with this business, I can set it up. It's all on me. And everything is running and gets taken care of and can be looked after as if you were there. And you can really, really go and embrace those experiences in the same way that going home to be with my family at a time they needed me. Like, I was just so present and nothing else mattered, and the money was still coming in. And that is pretty magical. So whether you love your job or hate your job, I don't think anyone can say that's a bad thing to have something that takes very little time and is really, really leveraged as an additional income.
I agree. When I was down in Tasmania, it was interesting because I would spend a whole day with Mum. We'd go to the hospital, get the treatment done, go for a nice lunch, you know, spend that time. And then really all it took was for me to come home and then just dedicate 1 to 2 hours to make sure certain things were done. And then that was it. Exactly. And so that was like that maintenance mode for 10 days. Just to have that is just so incredibly powerful. Yeah. It's awesome.
Yeah. And I mean, it's not always like that. Of course, there's the ebbs and the flows where there's big changes have happened in the internet space recently, and we've all had to sort of grind and learn new stuff. And, there are phases like that, but it's the flip side of that is what you're saying. You can go into maintenance mode and minimal mode for as long as you want sometimes. And when you need it most, it's unfortunate, but most people don't really appreciate that until they experience it. And that's
awesome.
My experience of it.
So one thing that I have experienced just recently in London is attending an event. It's a leadership event that is part of the community that we are part of. And it's a huge thing to achieve a level within that particular leadership program. And I think, where did you go to for you? Because you achieved that pretty early on.
I went to New Jersey.
Okay, wonderful. And so for those that are watching, that are thinking to themselves, that would be an incredible goal for me. What was the thing that you got out of that event, that leadership event, that event being 10 for 10? What did you get out of that? What was the biggest thing that came out of that event for you?
It was interesting because that event was kind of added to the program. It was the first one of this 10 for 10, they call it. So the company introduced it, but I had been around long enough to sort of be in I don't want to say a backlog, but a group of people that had qualified for it a long time ago. And it was, what I loved about it was not being there as any kind of expert at all, but as someone who was in the middle of this hiatus of my journey, and seeing people who'd come along and just had a completely different experience of gunning for it, and sort of high-paced growth and achievement was awesome. And it just was a really reflective time. There was about 10 or 15 of us in the room, and like pretty much what we've just said, everyone shared their journey so far, their background prior to being online, the lessons they've learned, the relationships they've built, and that the relationships and the friendships is by far the biggest thing I've got from this, because it does take a certain mindset and conditioning, and you generally find that the people that reach a certain level, and that room was testament to that, because it was designed for having those people together, you do find that those people have very similar values and a similar mindset, and the level of conversation that you have at those events is just phenomenal. And it's like you can sit for hours on end and just not be in the slightest bit tired or exhausted, and just inspired. And I cannot imagine ever having conversations like that in the corporate space that I was in before.
That's awesome. And I think because you use the word reflective, and I think that that's a really brilliant word to use, because I'm only just thinking about this now. It's a time for you to, for me, it was a time to reflect and actually pat myself on the back. Actually getting to that event, because it does take a certain amount of tenacity and commitment and dedication and persistence and daily stuff to actually get yourself to that event and sit there. And I think reflective is a really good word that you've used, because I did reflect. I did take time to actually say to myself, you know what, bloody good job, really.
Good.
Bloody good job, because
Glad to hear it.
you do, because I don't think that we do enough of that, is to just actually reflect and say, wow, I mean, we're doing things that people are not doing out there, and not just technically, right?
God, no, I think, and I'm by no means do I consider myself with both feet in the feminist camp at all, but women are particularly bad at giving themselves any credit. So yeah, go us.
Yeah, exactly.
We're really
good point, right? Good point. Exactly.
I don't know if it's a Western thing, but
exactly. A good job, right? Good job, because you are in a very small percentage of people that can actually get to that level, actually have active members throughout your program, and to reach a certain amount of revenue in an online business is a really, big deal. And so
it's so easy to take it for granted how quickly your sort of reality shifts. Like I gave my mum a bit of a lecture about this recently, because she decided not to buy a house that she was buying, just to analogize what we're saying. And she wasn't buying this house. She's going to move into a property that I own so that she can invest and just basically set up her retirement a bit better.
Yes.
And she was going to buy this perfect house, but was going to be living in it with no money, because she's living on a state pension. So she's not. But as a result, it's meant 3 months where she's had to go and stay with friends, and she's sort of hopping about a bit, and she's a bit displaced. And she got quite upset because she feels like she doesn't belong anywhere at the moment. And all of a sudden it's really upsetting. And I got it. And I said, hang on a minute, like 5 minutes ago, this was the best idea since sliced bread, and it's going to give you this incredible lifestyle in your retirement years. Now for 3 months, it's going to be a nightmare. And I was like, it really stopped me in my tracks, because it's so true how quickly a shiny object, or the grass is always greener, and then you get it and it's like, oh, this isn't good enough. And it's a lot of what we've been saying, but giving yourself credit is such a big part of that. Like, it's so easy to go, well, this is my normality now, like why is it so special? But it is. And that's what last year taught me. The number of people that, after hearing my story in Perth, was like, that's amazing. Like, I earn double what the average salary is, I think, pretty much passively. And it stopped me in my tracks, and it's made me, like I say, to go full circle to what we said. It's like, if I was to get a new job now and a new career and have a whole new chapter and work for someone else, I've also got this phenomenal income over here as extra. Like, it's a choice.
Yes.
It's huge.
That's great that you talk about that, because we talk about that, and I talk about it in my real estate business as well. Passive income as opposed to active income.
Yep.
And we do toss around the word passive income a lot, because passive isn't really passive.
No.
Right. Okay. And it's interesting because it's very, very active in the beginning. Right? You would say it's online business, real estate, very, very active in the beginning, sourcing, rehabbing, putting tenants in, getting the right tenants, working towards that. However, once it's built and once it's there and once it's done, then you start to say, well, okay, passive income, because like you said, you were out of that business, or you were not doing as much, same as me with the real estate business, not doing as much. And I'm actually working on my online business. However, the income is coming in from that business that I spent 10 years building, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting.
And it is interesting. I mean, I hate even, I have used it in my content, but I hate using the word passive. I like to say leveraged. Like it's a leveraged income. It's not passive. It's not like if you do nothing. I did next to nothing for a year, but it does affect the income, and it does start. It's like with a real estate business, if you ignore all the emails from your tenants for a year, I'm sure that they will bugger off and you will have no rent coming in.
Exactly.
Like nothing is passive as such. You've either worked to put it there or you work to maintain it, but it's extremely leveraged in the amount of work it takes to generate that. Yeah.
And it's good to use the word passive in respect to your conversations, because it's such a widely used term.
Yeah.
People connect to that. People understand that. And so it's about our journey with the members to explain to them, well, it's really pretty bloody active in the beginning.
Yeah. Well, I said this in another interview I did the other day. It's like it was a live interview I did in the community. It's like, you know, the very thing that you're building this for is exactly what you have to give up at the beginning. Like, I wanted more time and I wanted more money. Well, when I got started, guess what?
Yes.
Spending money and spending all my time at my laptop, and I saw my family and my friends even less. Like, that's just the way it goes. You have to put it into the bank to take it out. And
exactly.
It works. Yeah. And I think a lot
true. It's very, very true. It really is, because
like a relationship.
Exactly. I don't even go clothes shopping anymore. It's like I just ignore all of that, you know. It's anyway.
Can use it for Facebook ads. What are you talking about?
Exactly.
New pair of shoes, new laptop.
Yeah, exactly. Marketing budget, right?
Yeah, no.
Everything gets compared to a marketing budget right now.
No, that's why I moved to Australia, because I can wear summer clothes and they're cheaper and I need less of them. Good. The rest can go into business.
Good. And no more high shoes either. Like, that's the thing that I do like about, I love, like, it's just open shoes.
I live in thongs, or in the UK, flip-flops. Yeah, I've learned to say thongs here because people get confused.
Yeah, they do. We're getting close to the top of the hour now, so we'll just, I think that one question here, which would be valuable to anyone that's wanting to start, build and create an online business. What's the one thing that you would advise, recommend anyone? What's something action oriented that you would recommend they do at the beginning of their journey?
As in a practical, technical,
tasky type thing, action-oriented thing that they could apply themselves to do. What would be the one thing, looking back now after the journey traveled, what would be the one thing that you would recommend?
I think it would be, I mean, whatever business model you go into, marketing and lead generation is your primary revenue producing activity. And there's obviously a lot involved with building the infrastructure to have that. But even if, you know, whilst you're learning to build websites, whilst you're doing whatever it is you're doing that's technical and doesn't instantly bring an income, be learning marketing, be reading books on how to market, how to sell, how to focus on solution-oriented written copy, or, you know, because your message, and this is what I talk about a lot in my coaching, is like, you can YouTube and Google and figure shit out on most technical things, and, you know, strategies you can figure out, they'll always change, but the thing to learn is, in any business, and even for you in real estate, you market to find tenants, the right tenants. Like, matching people to problems and matching people to solutions for their problems is the thing to learn.
Yeah.
So you'll always have your head in a tutorial or build a website or something technical, but that's just a process. You will figure that stuff out. I think a skill of even if it's being on video and being written, like you said about a video journey, if you're the face of the business, and I think we live in a world now where it's becoming increasingly important that you are the face of your business. And if that's a problem for you, then get on top of that, because that is part of your marketing in whatever you do. It's no different to a restaurant owner being on the floor every night. I think that's really important. So when you're getting started, try and just have a little bit of that in your daily activity, even if it's 15 minutes listening to a podcast or having a book on the go that you read 3 or 4 pages of every night before you go to bed, like Dan Kennedy, Gary Vaynerchuk, all those kind of names in the media space now. It's not so much the sales space, it's everything so social. Gary Vaynerchuk would be a big one, and just be documenting. You don't have to be perfect, you don't have to have shiny logos, but just connecting with your customers or your potential customers is huge.
That's awesome advice. That is just brilliant advice, because as you're going through that process, you're learning that whole philosophy around that learn, do, teach. It really funnels into that process as you build your business as well, and you provide value to people. So I think that's incredible.
Well, it's so to wrap that up, to summarize a very long answer, I think it's important to keep your eye on that, because as you learn, especially if you're brand new to this space, and I'm sure you can relate to this, like, it's so easy when you come in that you start producing content or you start talking about things to people as if they're wanting to start a business with you. And really, whatever the business is, you've got to stay in the headspace of the customers you're trying to attract. So when we go through our education, I see it all the time. People come in and they'll do a 90-day video journey to get better on video. And then halfway through, they start talking about how to use your email responder software. And it's like, your customers don't want to hear about that. Your customers want to hear about whatever solution you're providing. Like, but it's so easy. When you immerse yourself into that space, that's kind of what I meant by my first answer before, is like, stay in the headspace of marketing to your end customer.
Brilliant advice. That is brilliant advice. And you also said something about problem solution. Problem solution. And really,
any business.
Because you've got the choice of so many different opportunities, so many different online businesses. And what is the problem that someone's having out there? And it was like the conversation we had before we got onto this call about my hairdresser approaching me today and saying to me, Trish, who does your website? Who hosts that? And what? And I said, well, actually, I host my own, and I built it in the last 2 months. I built my own. Exactly. She went, really? And I showed her. And so she said, the problem that I have, so as soon as she said the word problem, the problem that I have is that every time I want to change something, I've got to get in contact with my designer. It's going to charge me a fortune to actually get it done. And then I'm reluctant to go back for that change. And I went, wow. So I started to think, okay, that's a problem. So then I went to the lady that does my eyebrows, and I said to her, just out of curiosity, is this a problem? Like, is this? Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
So, we have a solution to that, potentially, whether it be through training, whether it be through providing a tool to do that, whether it be providing online education, whatever it is. Yeah. So it's interesting the way you said that problem, find that problem and then meet that with the solution. And
that's just not for anyone in online business. I think that's true of, like, again, go to an offline business example, like your real estate business. You are providing housing solutions to a particular problem. Now, are you providing that solution to young couples that need, an apartment, or are you providing it to students that need a big share house? Like, those are different markets, and it's a skill set that just carries over into anything you do.
And again, you raise another great point. Find a niche, find an area, because my particular area, I hung my hat on 10 years ago, and it was safe, affordable housing. And so there were benefits to attract investors that way, and a load of benefits to attract potential tenants that way. So single family homes, that's it. Like, people say, aren't you going to venture into multi-units, multi-family? No, single family. So find your niche. Sometimes if you go too wide, it can cause big problems. Find that niche and just really hone in and become the expert.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Brilliant interview. Very, very quick question. The last question I ask this of everyone is,
Okay.
and it's a big one. It's a big question. Where do you see yourself or your business in the next 5 years?
Ooh.
I know.
Oh God, there's 5 years is a long time in this space.
It's huge. I was asked that about my goals the other day and I nearly choked.
I know, and 5 years used to be like your short-term goal, but in the online space, it's, if you look 5 years back, it's a different world.
Totally.
I would like to think that financially, or what I've started to do just a little bit now is just start to brand myself a lot more. And I think that is the beauty of the affiliate space, is that you can get started and you're only responsible for marketing. So to bridge from what we've just said, like, you're forced to learn what I think is the most important skill anyway, which brings in an income without the headache of a lot that you would have to deal with as a business owner, which are your own products. And now I would like to think 5 years from now that I have my own products and my own brand. I don't know what that's in. I really enjoy the coaching and training space. And I love the leadership space and the sort of the minds, not so much mindset, but like my own brand of that is what I see myself. We were talking before about authenticity, and there's certain authors that I'm really obsessed with at the moment, Mel Robbins being one, Brene Brown being another. And I think the world really needs that at the moment, and especially more females doing it, because it can be a really male dominated space. And again, I'm not here waving a feminist flag. It's just true. And I think even a lot of men relate to some women better than they do from, especially the internet space. It is changing, but for a long time it's been so male dominated with do this and buy a Porsche. And it's just, I think those days are numbered.
Yep.
So sort of my own brand around how to live your best life. I really enjoy those conversations, and happiness and authenticity, and an element of life coaching. Still, can you see how long it's taken me to answer this? Because I can't refine it. But that's the point.
But this is good because
because
I do see that of you, because I see that you're hugely marketable, and I see that authenticity, actually there could be an incredible brand around that. Leave nothing unsaid, because that's something that stuck with a lot of people. There are a lot of people that really grabbed onto that, and still to this day. Actually, I did a video just recently and I mentioned you, and I mentioned the leave nothing unsaid. And that has stuck with me, that hashtag, and just that whole. Good. So I do see that with you. And I saw you as a very inspiring, influential, authentic business leader, businesswoman, business leader. And you're right. Women do need to step up and be seen. And this, again, I'm not all for, let's just support the women or anything like that. It's just being a woman and doing that obviously inspires women and encourages energy. Women.
There's a lot of men as well. There's a lot just in this particular space, in the online space, you don't have to look far to see a lot of macho energy, and that applies to women in the space. There can be a lot of quite aggressive, ballsy characters out there, and I definitely have a bit of that. But I think it's just getting these kind of messages out to as many people as possible, and I don't think people appreciate enough that takes more people to do it, because you don't have to be Tony Robbins, you don't have to be Richard Branson. The online space gives one person the ability to make their little bit of impact in the world however they want to, and that might be a message around being a vegan, or that might be a message around kindness, or really good stuff, the environment. There's all sorts of things you can be passionate about, and learning the skills to put that online, you're going to reach a lot more people and make a bigger difference. And whether it be 5 years from now or the day I'm on my deathbed, like, it would be nice to think that it's a space that gives you the ability to make a difference, as cheesy as that might sound.
It's not cheesy, and you have a great story. And I mean, I can see hashtag Leave Nothing Unsaid as a book straight away. I mean, I can really
working on that one.
Yeah,
working on it.
And still keep doing that hashtagging and just build that brand up as you move through your journey, because you support that. You're all about that, and I really respect that. I think it's awesome. You've taught me a lot, and I've taken action on some of the things that you have delivered as well, as you clearly know. And I think it's really, really important to live it. So thank you so much for allowing me to do this. It's just awesome. And your support, for you to reach out to me, because I have been going through a bit of a rough journey in the first half of this year. For you to reach out like that, that's incredible. I acknowledge that a lot and respect that a lot. So thank you for reaching out to me as well. I think it's awesome.
Likewise, it's pretty inspiring to see you ploughing on regardless. It's just as inspiring, I can assure you.
And that's the word, ploughing on.
Not the most graceful choice of word, but
it's good. It's true.
It can feel a bit like that at times.
That's right.
Doing it anyway.
A lot of truth. All right, Amy. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Trish.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.